Welcome to TECM 1500 within the Technical Communication Department at UNT. In this introductory video for Module 1, I'll introduce myself, explain the objectives for this course, and the types of assignments you can expect, and other details so that you can prepare for success. In this class, our main objective is to look at a wide array of the various job roles involved in producing software, phone applications, websites, and other kinds of digital products. Think about any digital program such as Microsoft Outlook or Google Drive, or websites like Canvas and the UNT homepage, or any apps on your phone. These softwares are developed in the same manner, with teams of people coming together to do the same job functions at each of these companies. In addition to learning the names of these job roles and what their responsibilities are, we'll focus on how these jobs work together. As we'll discuss soon enough, it's the collaboration of these job roles, the designers, the developers, the technical communicators, and many other people involved bringing their skill sets together to achieve a common goal that makes these apps possible. Just a second to introduce myself as your instructor for this course. My name is Autumn Hood, and I'm a technology industry design leader with over 10 years of experience creating software as a user experience designer and now a manager. I graduated from UNT with a master's in technical communication, and I've been teaching with the department since 2013. Our course is entirely online and asynchronous, meaning that you will need to go through the materials on your own in Canvas each week and complete the assignments on your own on time. We don't have a set time that our class meets, and we won't have regular touch points where we will talk directly. That said, I am available should you want to discuss anything or have any questions, but you'll have to reach out to me via email or Canvas to ask your question or to set up a meeting time if it's outside of regular office hours. And if I don't hear anything from you, I'll assume that you're going through the material and completing the assignments fine. Because the class opens new material and assignments in weekly increments, you'll need to find a system that works for you to complete the work on time. There's ample time provided to complete each assignment, and this class is designed to not have too many assignments going on at one time. I recommend logging into our class on Canvas daily, if not several times a week at least, to make incremental progress, so you're not waiting until the last minute, because things always have a way of coming up. I will open up new modules by Monday of each week, and you have until Sunday at midnight to do the reading, watch any videos, complete the weekly quiz, and do a discussion post. As we'll talk about in a few slides, the discussion post is split into 2 parts, and potentially post a memo, which you always get at least 2 weeks in advance to work on it. Each topic listed here is a separate module in Canvas, or sometimes we say unit. For long semesters like a full fall or a full spring, not necessarily summer or May semesters if you happen to take this course during one of those shortened semesters. During the long semesters, each week I'll open up a new module in this order, and that module will contain the materials for you to read or watch, as well as the assignments to complete. This slide doesn't reflect break weeks like spring break or Thanksgiving break, but the syllabus shows where those break weeks will fall in each schedule. If you consume all the required materials, complete the quizzes and the discussions and the memos, it's very likely that you will get an A in this course. The memo prompts cover relevant content from the course, and the quiz questions are not designed to trick you. If you thoroughly consume the material, you should do just fine. The format for the final will be just like the quizzes, multiple choice via Respondus Lockdown Browser, which we'll go over in more detail in just a few slides. One more thing to notice as you look at this list, the semester is somewhat broken up into 3 parts. The first one is just foundations, so what is the course, what is technical communications, how to write a memo and how to plan for success on those major assignments, and also just generally speaking how software gets built. The bulk of the content is in the middle. Weeks 5 through 13, these are the job roles. Subsequent weeks 14 and 15 are about looking ahead at the job industry regarding the tech job market and artificial intelligence and machine learning and what they might mean for these jobs. Let's talk about the types of assignments in our course. Quizzes count for 35%, memos are 40%, discussions are 20%, and the final exam is 5%. We'll talk about each of these assignments in more detail. So first up, the weekly quizzes. These will be in each module, and they're always due that Sunday at midnight, the same week that the module opens. Although the quizzes are not designed to trick you, they do pull from specific parts of the material, so please do pay attention as you're reading and watching the lectures or the supplemental additional materials, and take notes if you need to. They do include also recap questions about things like course policies and general topics that we may cover. So, for example, the things that I'm telling you right now are fair game on the rest of the quizzes throughout the semester. We use Respondus Lockdown Browser. If you're not familiar, it is a type of browser like Chrome or Safari or Firefox that we require you to use in our class when you take our TECM 1500 quizzes. Once you have the quiz up and running in this browser, you can't open up other sites. So it's an insurance policy against cheating. When you have the Respondus Lockdown browser up and you're doing the quiz, you won't be able to access other sites, and you also won't be able to access our quizzes with standard browsers. You'll get an error message if you try. It's your responsibility to make sure that you have Respondus Lockdown browser installed on whatever machine you're going to use to take the quizzes, and that you've done any troubleshooting that you need to do, or contacted their support team, or submitted a help desk ticket with UNT by the time the first quiz is due. Each semester that I teach this class, out of 60 or 70 plus students, there's always a few, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 people that waited until the last minute to figure out this browser setup, and it caused them to not be able to turn in the quiz on time. But my philosophy is, if the vast majority of the rest of the class can get it in on time, then it doesn't seem fair to provide an extension to individuals who waited until the last minute. Do plan ahead if this is an unfamiliar technology to you, and be thinking about weekend scheduling and whether or not help desk and phone numbers and things like that are going to be available over the weekend. Other types of assignments in our class are discussion posts. There are 7 over the course of the entire semester. There's an original post component and a response or reply component. The original post is due on Thursday by midnight, so that everyone has until Sunday to read those original posts and then post replies. Canvas will show you that it is due Sunday, because that is when the ultimate submission for the original post and the response is due. You can also see other reasons that you would get point deductions. If you haven't submitted the response, but you did submit the original post, that would also be a point deduction. If the replies are so generic that they really aren't thoughtful, there's a point deduction for that. Various deductions for missing the word count minimum, not meaningfully responding to the relevant topics of the prompt, etc. And the last type of assignment in class is the memo. They are 500 minimum word count each, and they are not designed to be that difficult to get a good grade on. They're designed to have you reflect on the material up to that point. I suggest that you give yourself the time to consume the material for that memo assignment and the prompt, but also think about it and come up with your own original takes on it, and do any sort of brainstorming or outlining or editing that you want to include in your writing process. You'll write 5 of these memos throughout the semester, and they're not designed to be research projects. They're more of a chance for you to reflect on how the source material in the course resonates with you, how you think that you could apply this material going forward in your career and in your studies at UNT, but it's not designed for you to do a bunch of secondary research and then come back with a Wikipedia style entry on a given topic. We will dedicate Module 3 to talking entirely about what memos are, how to write them, things to look out for, and understanding the rubric so that you can make a good grade. Last but not least, with each memo assignment, you have the ability to earn 10 points of extra credit per assignment by taking your memo to the Writing Center at UNT before it's due, and having a one-on-one tutoring session to help you improve your grammar, provide some critiques, work on your layout or your organization. We don't have any modules in our course dedicated to teaching basic writing skills. Basic writing skills are considered a prerequisite for this course because we don't have any time to refresh on those skills. If you know that writing is an area where you struggle, or it's been a few semesters since you had a writing heavy class, I urge you to take advantage of this extra credit, because not only will it give you that extra credit, but you will also be getting a better grade because you got some help on it, you took the time on this assignment, so it's a win-win. To receive the extra credit, you must submit proof that you had this visit as the last page of your memo. So a page at the back of your PDF or your Word doc that shows either a photo of your session, like maybe of your paper at the Writing Center on campus, or of the email confirmation if you do an online appointment. I won't be able to keep up with individual folks emailing me that they went, but your email is completely detached to the actual submission that I end up looking at and grading in Canvas. So I won't be able to manage that for the number of students in this course. So again, to receive this extra credit, I do ask that you submit it as the last page of your memo so that the information about the extra credit is always right front and center for me when I'm reviewing your paper. I know that with the start of each new semester, you're getting a bunch of syllabuses and they all kind of say the same thing, and there's a lot of content there for you to consume. I want to highlight the top few that are important. This is an asynchronous course, so you're responsible for making sure that you're familiar with the content provided and that you're able to keep up with due dates and have your own system for getting things turned in on time. The due dates in our class are firm unless you make plans with me in advance before missing an assignment. There are no makeups unless these arrangements are made prior with me, because each assignment has at least a week to complete it, if not longer if it's a memo assignment. With the amount of content that we really cover in the class, my rationale is that there's ample time in each given week to complete that week's assignments. Sometimes there's actually only a quiz due at the end of that week and not even a discussion. So late assignments will earn a 0, and I adhere to that policy pretty firmly. Next is the policy on academic dishonesty, UNT policy 06.003, student academic integrity. The main way that this will apply to our class is by taking the quizzes alone and unassisted, by not having AI write your discussions or your replies. By the way, the discussions and the replies are 50 words for the responses and I think 250 for the original post. So it's really not a large assignment. Along those same lines as having AI write either large parts or the entirety of their memos. The memos are asking you to reflect on your experience with a certain technology or doing certain actions or being in certain situations. When students use AI to write their memos, what ends up happening is it ends up being less about your lived experience and it's more about what the technology does or who created it or why it's important in society. And it's a lot less personal for obvious reasons. I'll go into that next. And lastly, this is more of an iteration. I am here to answer questions and provide clarifications. I'm checking Canvas and email daily, if not multiple times a day. But you do have to reach out to me to initiate any conversation that would take outside of office hours. Since we're here on artificial intelligence, I think appropriate ways to think about using AI, if it is something that you do enjoy using or that you're comfortable using or that you're trying to get better at using, would be things like using it as a notepad to brainstorm ideas. You can get some feedback on how you're approaching something or making sure that you're answering the prompt fully, helping with your outline, checking spelling and grammar with tools like grammar, asking, is there any ambiguous wording, having things that are more like a gut check than something that is purely generative, generating complete responses, complete discussion posts and submissions. That's prohibited. AI is fine as an assistant where you are the main driver. And a good rule of thumb is that if you don't know whether or not something that you're doing with AI is allowed or not, you could always ask me for clarification. And I will just mention that there have been cases where I will receive an AI response from individuals. A lot of times I see it, I'm more surprised when I see it on discussion posts because those are so short. I'm less surprised if I see it on a memo because people see 500 words and they think they're not used to time managing to hit that number, and so they're thinking it's too much. I'm less surprised when I see AI used for the memos, but I will say that it's more obvious, what there's certain linguistic commonly used phrases, or sometimes folks will have the same headings across multiple papers that I didn't used to see people have all the same word for word or very, very nearly word for word headings and phrases and things, and now I am seeing it. So anecdotally speaking, it's clear which ones have had more of that influence than not. But I'll just say that if there's something that I strongly suspect is AI, I have the governance to make a decision. I'm flagging this as suspected of AI. I can decide what to do with that, giving it a flat out 0 if it's really obvious and there's really no arguing that it wasn't. Or I can ask you to submit timed writing where you wouldn't have a chance to use AI in a similar response. The consequences can range in terms of how severe the infraction is or how provable it seems. We'll talk more about writing in Module 3 and getting these memos done. I will give you tips and tricks and frameworks for how to get these memos done in a way that you're giving yourself the time and space to think about the content and get the submission done on your own. I won't leave you out to dry. I want you to succeed and to get the practice with the writing. More to come in Unit 3, especially if writing is not a strong suit of yours or it's very intimidating for you. If you need disability accommodations at UNT, there are some steps and they're all on you to complete. First, you have to register with the Office of Disability Access and meet with your coordinator. You have to send letters of accommodations to your professors using the correct portal, and the ODA office will be able to tell you which portal that is. Then you will also need to either meet with your professors or send an email asking to set up that meeting to discuss accommodations needed. I would advise you to do this as early as possible because it's your responsibility to follow these steps, and it's not like having an ODA registration does not provide carte blanche ability to miss assignments or turn work in late. So accommodations are specific and standardized, like extra 10 minutes on tests or reduced distraction environment. But it's not just like a free pass to blow past the deadline and then turn it in a few days late. I have had students who didn't submit a memo, but then they would try to turn it in and then say, but I have ODA documentation. But that's really not how it works. I didn't even know that she had any ODA documentation, which I would be happy to support, but the accommodations offered are specific named things, and they're not the ability to turn things in late with no prior communication. On Canvas, there is a page called Syllabus, and that lists these assignments and when they are due. To wrap up this section on policy, there's a lot of types of excuses I've received over the years, lots of common themes that emerge, and these are extensions I don't grant, and they are very real scenarios that you may face, such as your internet going out, having a busy work week and losing track of time, having a problem with your computer, having a problem with lockdown browser, having to work last minute, having these things that come up, again, outside of extenuating circumstances that we communicate about to plan ahead for if you're going to need to miss things. But these are the types of extensions that I would respectfully say, I'm so sorry to hear about that. That sounds really stressful. Unfortunately, I won't be able to give an extension. The schedule is very predictable. Our due dates are firm. They're very reasonable. Make a plan that works for you and let me know if you need any help with that plan. I can also help provide resources for you at UNT for getting this work done and getting an A in the course. I wanted to end week one by giving you something useful, since I know that week one for a lot of your classes will be a lot about syllabus and maybe starting to get into the actual content of your course. I'm going to spend the last couple minutes here on how the tech job market actually looks right now and what you can start to do about it as you are preparing to enter said job market. You've probably seen a lot of contradictory headlines about the job market, a lot of doom and gloom takes, and some of that there's a little bit of reality to it, but a lot of that is noise, and almost all of that is written to get clicks or to sell you something or to convince you to give your engagement. I've been in this industry for like a decade, and I've seen it change through several phases of technology or waves of big process change that have come and gone. I'm not saying that AI is going to grow. It's definitely not something that anyone can predict with any degree of certainty. I did want to give you a more neutral take or give you some things that you can actually do to increase your chances of landing that job sooner. First and foremost, the sky is not falling. Tech is still a very fast growing part of the economy, like hundreds of thousands of new roles a year. Employers generally are holding steady or hiring maybe a little bit more, or at least replacing attrition when folks leave. They're refilling those roles. What changed isn't necessarily whether you can get in, it's how you get in. What are the right things to do? Treat a job search like a skill. It is a skill, and there are things that you can do to increase your odds, like statistically thinking. Second, the word entry level has some connotations to it now that perhaps it didn't before. A diploma used to be enough to get an interview, not really having any prior work experience. And now I don't think that you need to have held a paying job, but it is more common to be able to prove that you have done the work, and the work can take place in college courses. So it might mean projects, not necessarily like a 6-month internship. But they're going to want to see something that you built, a problem you solved. You definitely don't need to be an expert. You just need to be able to point to something and explain what you did and why you did it and what you learned about it. So entry level still means entry level in the sense that you don't need to have had a paying job, but holding just the degree is not really a wise strategy anymore. Like, they're going to want to see that you've applied what you learned with your degree in some way. And again, college work and coursework is acceptable. as long as you pitch it the right way. Third, this is something that can be surprising, but a lot of jobs are not won through the apply button, either on LinkedIn or Indeed or Monster or even on the website's own job ad board. They're won through people. Cold applications, where you just upload your resume into a portal, those have a very low success rate. So the skill here isn't okay, just fill out more of these forms and fill out more of these, because the success rate is so low that if I do a lot of them, I'll have a higher chance of getting one interview. The skill that I would recommend is to build relationships with people in the industry before you need them. You can ask people things like, hey, I'm looking to get into marketing. We have a connection through the UNT TECM department. This could be a message on LinkedIn. This could be an email. If they have a UNT affiliated email that you have access to, how did you get into this field? What would you recommend? I wouldn't ask someone to spend a ton of time. This is one example of how you can make connections with real folks that are already working in the industry. Go to meetups, go to online forums, go to webinars and participate in the chat that's happening. Go to industry events, go to student groups, join a student group, especially if there's already the infrastructure in place, like a student group. Just join and attend and meet the guest speakers that they have and connect with them on LinkedIn and ask them, hey, could I write you an email just to ask you about how you got started? Go to conferences and network that way. Offer to help. See, you're trying to put together a panel talk for new developers. Could I help you with that? Could I help organize it for you? Could I help you with the email invite? I'll give you one example. The UNT is a great way for you to build some of these connections. That's its own entire topic, and I would do some research there if you're not sure where to get started. How can I build connections in my industry, even if not locally, but just remotely? I had an ex-coworker reach out to me on LinkedIn. She said, hey, I've got this opening job role. Do you have anyone in your UNT network that would be a good fit? And it was for an entry-level UX designer. I sent that to someone at the department, and then from there it went on. Just the fact that in this example, a student that would have been a good fit would be someone that is active in their department, in their major department, in this case TechCom, and has relationships with the instructors, so that when I reach out to these instructors and I say, hey, I've got someone looking for an entry-level UXer, do you know anyone? They're like, oh yeah, this person comes to mind because they're proactive in our department. They're helping us set up events. It's not even about skill set. These requests come through as, hey, do you know anyone? This colleague that asked me that, she didn't ask me, do you know the best person? She said, do you know anyone? And there's a psychological effect there of the fact that she knows me, she thinks I'm credible, and then whoever I think is credible after that, she trusts. That's how networking works. I would look for ways that you're offering to help someone else and make their lives easier. For the fourth thing, the strongest way to get into this field is hands-on experience, and the classic version of that is to have an internship somewhere, because people who intern somewhere are very likely to get hired full-time. If they open up that position full-time, it'll often be offered to the person who is just interning. Not everyone can land that perfect internship, and that's okay. The point is experience. So if you can't get an internship, see if you can contribute to some kind of open source project or do a freelance gig or volunteer your tech skills maybe for a nonprofit, or ask people, hey, I'm volunteering to do some coding work. Can I help you update your website? I know that seems like a lot of work, but right now in college is the best time to take on these extra things, because think of it as like a snowball effect. The earlier that you can get these good opportunities right out of college or towards the end of college, it will continue to compound the opportunities that you get afterward, because you may already have 1 or 2 years of experience and then be offered a promotion or be eligible for another position that someone else who is still looking won't have the odds that you do. Find the time in college to do these extra things that give you that extra bump to be a really strong candidate early on, even though it does take more time. The time that you put in now, I think, will pay off with interest. I do want to talk about AI a little bit, because you kind of can't not talk about it in the current job market. AI is changing what entry level looks like, but the data is more hopeful than the headlines, which is that companies that are leaning really hard into AI are hiring more people, including more entry level people. And one theory is maybe they want to hire young people who already know how to use these tools. That's one theory, but the takeaway isn't fear AI or that AI is solely coming for your job. AI is changing jobs, and we will talk about that at the end of the semester. The headline is make sure that you know how to use AI the way that people in your field are using it. It's not enough to know how to interact with a large language model or have good prompts. It's more about how does someone who is a technical communicator use AI. Basic fluency is a good thing, but that's going to become a baseline expectation the way using Microsoft Word and PowerPoint is a baseline expectation. If you put that on your resume, it's taking up space because there's no one that would be hired in a corporate setting that wouldn't be expected to use those tools, and AI will be the same in terms of basic common AI tools like ChatGPT and Claude. This connects to that last point. AI can handle a lot of this routine stuff. That's what it is for. That's what makes it valuable. But there's stuff that it still can't do because of how it works and how it relies on things that exist to train it. So coming up with novel problems, novel solutions to solving problems, like adapting, are going to be the areas where AI will lag behind people. You already have those skill sets. You may feel like you might need to work on them, but those are the skill sets that you were innately born with as a human. So again, the more experience that you can get in solving problems, and this kind of connects to some of the first ones we talked about on the last slide, take the opportunity to be a lead presenter in a group project, even if that's something that you're not the most comfortable with. Practice explaining, taking on a role that you wouldn't normally take on in a group. The reason I'm saying that is because your human skills about adaptability, being able to explain new answers to complex problems, the people that can explain their work clearly and explain the value that they provided really clearly in a way that's like, oh yeah, it's obvious what you did and why you did it and why that was good that you did it. Those people are going to have an advantage over folks that might have more technical skill sets. But at a certain point, it's like, okay, both of these candidates can do the same type of coding script, but which one of them is better at telling me why they did what they did? And that will be more enticing than someone who knows more coding languages. And then quality over quantity, like the instinct is probably to fire off like hundreds of applications and play the numbers, because it's like, hey, if I only have a 1 or 2% chance of this landing an interview, I just want to increase my odds. That's not really going to help you in the long run because it's not sustainable. Most people are not going to be able to sustain doing that, and it's going to lead to burnout, and you're wasting your own time. Your resumes and your applications should be tailored. I think you should handwrite a cover letter. If there's a way for you to attach a cover letter, even if they don't ask for one, it doesn't have to be long. Quality will matter over quantity when it comes to the next step, which is to get the interview. When you're applying somewhere, you're not looking to land a job, you're looking to land an interview. And 8th is a practical one. When you apply online, the first thing that reads your resume is not a human. It is a piece of screening software. If your resume confuses the software, a person may never even see it because it may go to the trash bin. So keep formatting simple and clean. Don't have a lot of weird graphics or templates that will trip up the software, and try to mirror the language from the job posting as much as you can, because there will be a statistic that says these applicants have a 95% match with what we're looking for, right? Obviously, do that within reason. I wouldn't lie about your skill sets because eventually that will come up and not be fun. I wouldn't have too much tunnel vision, especially entry level. Your skills, there's a lot of adjacent jobs or jobs that don't have a title that you were expecting, and I would pay close attention to the responsibilities and skills and qualifications of each job, because there's not as much standardization as you would think within tech. Even when it comes to things like levels, a senior at one company could be the same as a principal at another, but it could also be one of the earlier levels at a third company. When you're weighing a role or wondering if it's a good fit, ask yourself if it's going to either teach you skills that you want or let you grow into things that you're not comfortable with, or get you in the industry that you want with portable skills. And 10th, interviews reward preparation. And this is perhaps some of the hardest advice to actually follow through with because it's the least fun. The more that you practice an interview and answering very common interview questions and being prepared to jump in and speak about a certain project, like why you did what you did, what did you learn, what would you change if you could, questions for the interviewers about the company. I have watched more qualified people lose out to others that we're able to speak and interact better. That's good news because preparation is completely in your control. You can decide how much you practice. I would practice out loud because reading it is one thing and you can almost have it memorized in terms of what you know the words are going to be, but it feels awkward. But that's how you will catch rambling or any nervous habits before you go into a real interview. So the robots are taking your jobs approach. Take it with a massive grain of salt when it comes to getting your foot in the door, gaining that early experience, and being able to present yourself as someone who will be a good fit for the team, can be proactive, can communicate clearly, can work with people. It connects to what we talk about in this course because all of the jobs that we cover exist inside of an ecosystem of other people. They don't do any of their things completely in isolation. That's the most important takeaway of this course. Be sure to complete the next quiz and discussion that are due at the end of this module. Thanks.